If you're looking for a new, old-school survival horror experience for the Halloween season, Tormented Souls 2 is a must-play. It's been a little over 4 years since the first game. A game that seemed to come a bit out of nowhere. What we got was a rock-solid survival horror experience with a high level of polish. As a follow-up, Tormented Souls 2 knocks it out of the park. It's very much an iterative sequel with a few small tweaks. It already had a rock-solid foundation, but it builds upon the foundation to make something better. Its level design is some of the best I've come across outside of the classic Resident Evil titles. It's got puzzles up the wazoo that will take some time to solve. And despite its longer than usual runtime for a survival horror title, it doesn't wear out its welcome or have major quality dips. It's fantastic old-school survival horror all the way through. It's a no-brainer to check out if you enjoyed the original or looking for a new survival horror experience. Before beginning, a disclosure and a thank you to Keymailer for sending me a review key. Tormented Souls 2 begins not long after the end of the first game. That game's best ending is the canon one. Through time travel shenanigans, Caroline brings her twin sister Anna to the present. There's a 14-year gap between them, with Anna the age of 10. Anna is a troubled young girl. She draws disturbing, detailed images on the regular. Ones that pop to her mind, unsure where these thoughts come from. One who's been helping Anna and Caroline back home in Canada suggests a place that would be better for helping with Anna's condition. That being a convent in Villa Hesse, a town in Chile. To note, the game's developer Dual Effect are based out of there.
Nothing's wrong. Or nothing that a stay at a fancy wellness retreat won't fix. Am I right?
It doesn't take long for things to go wrong for the sisters. Seems that Mother Lucia of the convent has been waiting for us for nefarious reasons.
Oh, we know exactly who you are. There's no mistake. You are Caroline and Anna, the Wildberger twins. And we've been preparing for your arrival here for many years.
Caroline, I'm scared. What's she saying? Nothing. We're getting out of here.
But you can't leave. Your grandfather Noah swore a covenant. You belong to us.
Please.
With that, Caroline is off to find her sister Anna and get to the bottom of what's going on in Villa Hesse. After the events of the first game, Caroline's a bit more used to strange dealings in her life. Like this one moment where she comes across a man torn in half on the floor and she's nonchalant about the whole situation. She does have a bit more sass this time around, along with a new voice actress. One that's a bit more polished compared to the first game.
A person in a wheelchair with knives in his hands was chasing me.
The book is hidden somewhere in the depths of this prison. Find it for me, and I'll show you how to open the door.
Oh. Well, that's a coincidence.
Sorry. You're the first person I've met today that didn't instantly want to kill me.
That's so weird, because you seem so friendly.
Between the two games, Caroline has picked up a few new tricks, like being able to move and shoot at the same time. Same case goes for reloading. She can do so while moving around. Although you can no longer reload your weapon in the menu. You have to do so in real time. You still heal in the menu. I do like how Caroline will swear under her breath if you try to reload a weapon when you don't have any more ammo.
God damn it.
Another big change is we can now assign 4 slots to weapons and your lighter to the right analog stick. While you could still switch in menu, you don't have to be going back and forth on the regular to switch between weapons or your lighter. You can now switch items in real time. Tormented Souls 2 once again makes use of darkness and shadows as a deadly foe. Stay in the darkness for too long without a light source and it's bye-bye Caroline. The game takes advantage of the real-time item change to make the darkness a more common threat. You want to keep an eye out for candles to light up on the regular. There's great tension in making your way through a new area and finding any light sources. You want to keep them in mind when you come across enemies. Either run past them or find a spot of light so you can switch your lighter for a weapon to fight. But running past enemies is a more tricky ordeal this time around. Feels like there was less space to run past enemies. They're far more vicious as well, with a higher variety to deal with. While Caroline can move while aiming now, she can't sidestep, but she still has her trusty backstep from the prior game. One you'll want to get a solid grasp on for iframe timings. There's one stretch where ghosts will enter the fold as enemies. My goodness, these are the most annoying ghosts I've come across in a horror game since Silent Hill 4. Now in hindsight, I should have spent my ammo and filled them with lead, but it's also a great chance to work on dodge timings. Thing is, they like to come at you in pairs, and with the shifting camera angles, you may miss the timing window for your dodge. I did encounter a frustrating bug about a handful of times during my playthrough in combat, where if I switched to the menu to heal and exited, Caroline would walk at a snail's pace. Sometimes pausing or switching back to the menu would fix it, but as a result, there were points I would take unnecessary damage. Now the game did get a patch after my playthrough and seems to be gone, but something I want to note. I hope you don't have to deal with it. With what I've talked about so far about combat, you may be thinking, is Tormented Souls 2 more action heavy? Yes, but not like they went overboard and went for an action horror focus. There is a higher number of weapons at our disposal. I had plenty of fun getting up close and personal with the sledgehammer or the chainsaw. There's a few cases of the door locking behind you, forcing you to clear out enemies before unlocking. But it's not like Silk Song or Silent Hill F, both recent releases as of writing, that went to this well too often. Beyond the higher variety of enemies, we have a handful of boss fights. As far as survival horror boss fights go, they're okay. Fixed camera boss fights are tricky to make enjoyable. They could have cut down their health pool by chunk, especially the final boss, but I've played worse in survival horror games. I did find the game's bouncing to be a bit erratic at points. In the game's early stretch in the convent, some sloppy play resulted in me running out of health items. For what seemed like an eternity, I didn't come across another. Felt like the game was trolling me for some time where every item I did come across was ammo. I can't remember the last time I felt so relieved to come across a healing item. That's some quality survival horror tension right there. Later stretches were more generous as far as ammo and health items go. I would find myself with little ammo to spare once I completed an area's boss. By the time I got to the next key location, I would stock up along the way or at the section's beginning stretch. Of course, areas don't remain static. Clearing out a room isn't a guarantee that will remain empty forever. Don't find yourself surprised when rooms fill up with new enemies after finding key items. The game always keeps you on your toes, like a survival horror title should. Tormented Souls 2, like the original, has that stark contrast between the monster design and humans. They've once again done a great job with the grotesque appearances of the monsters we come across. But I can't say the same for the human characters. This issue of characters appearing a bit goofy compared to the monsters and environments carry over, especially with the teeth, like they'd be more at home in a different game. It's not a huge detriment, but one to note. Considering how strong Tormented Souls 2 is on the other fronts of its presentation, it does stand out. The game also makes the jump from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5. Compared to what feels like 99% of UE5 games, there were no major performance issues. There were a couple rooms that had a tiny bit of slowdown, but that's heaven compared to my other experiences with UE5 games. Although I did have some odd lighting issues at points. I did have to tweak some of the graphics settings to find something that worked for it, but you know by now how things could be with this engine. One of the first game's standouts was its excellent level design, where it was clear as day Dual Effect had a rock-solid understanding of how to design a survival horror map. Well, they outdid themselves here. Tormented Souls 2 has some of the best level design I've come across in a survival horror title for some time. As mentioned, it's been 4 years since the first game's release. It's clear they spent much of that time polishing its level design to a T. They also used that time to expand on the scope and size of Tormented Souls 2. You have a handful of intricate locations with parts of the town connecting them. It's not like they interconnect with one another. Each area is more or less self-contained, but the amount of detail, love, and care put to these sections is staggering. It's the classic survival horror loop of making progress inch by inch, opening up new areas and looping back to prior areas with new shortcuts. I did have a few concerns going into Tormented Souls 2 about the game's length. The developers were shooting for a 15 to 20 hour playtime. Quite long for a survival horror title. I find 6 to 10 hours to be that sweet spot. Now that said, it's common for devs to overstate their game's length, but it seemed to be quite accurate here with my playthrough a bit under 15 hours. It's common for survival horror titles, even amongst the best, to have noticeable quality drops, where later stretches didn't get the same love and attention as earlier areas. But I felt little of that here. There was a bit at times, especially the ghost-heavy stretches. The last section was more linear and did away with shortcuts, but this was the exception and not the norm. I had a blast unlocking my way forward and looping my way back around. I didn't find myself feeling that the game was dragging at any point. It could have cut down a tiny bit for a tighter experience, but props to Dual Effect for keeping the quality bar so high for the game's long runtime. If you ask me to drop or visualize the game map, I feel like I could do a decent job of recreating it, knowing where each room was, even with the game's size. There's a few reasons for why that's the case. One being the fantastic use of fixed camera angles. They outdid themselves here in their use of them. Notable highlights include the earlier game stretches where you're reliant on your lighter. The dread and atmosphere derived from these shots is incredible. They're also used with great effect to guide the player, not only to other locations, but items in the environment. Some will shine in the environment to help stand out, others draw attention to themselves with camera angles. You're going to be picking up a ton of items, ones to use elsewhere to unlock a room or make further progress, in which case you pick up more items that you can use at past locations. Or in some cases, you create shortcuts and pick up items from earlier to use in another location. Not every item you come across will only have one-time usage. With the game's size, you walk a delicate line with item progression. It can be easy for a player to miss a sole key item and wander for around some time without direction, but due to the strong use of fixed cameras, I never had a case of missing a key item in Tormented Souls 2. As great as the level design and progression is, there are some missed opportunities. In the first game, you have sections where Caroline would enter a mirror. This would take her to an alternate reality of a location. These return in Tormented Souls 2, known as the Other Side sections, the game's equivalent to the other world of Silent Hill. Unlike Silent Hill, we could enter and leave them at our own will, well, besides Silent Hill Origins. While they look cool, the game doesn't do much of interest with them. Find an item or do something here so you could access something in the real world. I was hoping they'd do something more interesting with them. Instead, it feels like a case of, well, we had this in the original, so let's do it again. I do enjoy the dreary, dreadful atmosphere, but felt like they could have gone far more mileage out of them. The same case goes for using tapes to visit areas in the past. These return, but like the Other Side sections, feel undercooked. They had a few clever moments in the first game, like Caroline removing her own eye or how you could use it to get the best ending. But here it's more or less step into the past, put an item here, go back to the present and see what changes. Again, it felt like something that needed to be there as they did so in the first game. Which is too bad. You open up the possibility for interesting puzzles for players to solve. Ones where they need to keep the passage of time in mind. But they didn't devote much focus to these stretches as far as puzzles go, for they devoted that time elsewhere. One key reason the first game resonated for me was its use of puzzles. The sheer amount, the quality, and their head-scratching nature. At their best, they put the puzzles of other survival horror titles to shame. That feeling of coming up with a solution and realizing you were correct? Chef's kiss. That said, you walk a mighty fine line if you're going for difficult puzzles. You could enter the realm of point-and-click territory, where you're left wondering, how was I supposed to figure that one out as you look at a guide for hints? There were a few of these puzzles in the first game. A couple where I did outright look up the solution. That said, I'll still take that frustration over other survival horror games, ones that tend to have half-baked puzzles that have little satisfaction of solving. Or worse, the regurgitator puzzle, where you make note of something elsewhere and enter that information one-to-one. Tormented Souls 2 has a much better balance than the first game. Some still fall into that puzzling realm with their logic. When I got my review key, they also include a puzzle solution guide. Now, I kept my usage at the minimum. There might be a time here and there where I need a little nudge in the right direction. But there was one puzzle involving a rotary phone that stumped me. I thought I worked out the logic of it. Turns out I wasn't even close, nowhere near the area code. This one I did look up. Looking back at my footage all these hours later, I still don't understand the logic behind its answer. So if you do figure out this rotary phone puzzle, please let me know what its logic is. Something's not connecting here in my mind. There's another one with rotating tiles that gave me a good laugh. where I get so close but still have one tile of alignment. This one took me a lot longer than I care to admit. There was one that was lacking instant feedback if I had the right answer. You'd have to make your way down the hall to see if your solution was right. Unless I missed something, looking back my footage I didn't, a little sound click would have been nice here. There's another puzzle where part of its solution requires Caroline spinning in place. It seems like that might not be the solution. You have to spin several times for the game to acknowledge it. Why they wouldn't accept 1 or 2 spins, I'm not sure why. Now there is a quasi-regurgitator puzzle in the cemetery involving lining up star constellations, where you need to find this information and enter it elsewhere. If you're playing on PC, print screen is your friend here. It doesn't help that during the stretch you're having ghosts hunting you down, assuming you didn't fill them with lead. Now there was one puzzle that made clever usage between the real world and the other side. One that I hope the game would have made more use of when overlapping these areas. Again, this feels like a missed opportunity. But otherwise, the puzzles find that great balance of satisfaction upon completion. Some seem straightforward, only for you to realize there's more to it than meets the eye. But when you come to that right conclusion, it's a great feeling that few other survival horror titles can reach with their puzzles. Like the first game, one of Tormented Souls 2's shortcomings is the plot. While the lore behind the first game was decent, I found the plot to be a bit lacking. Beyond having a few good moments in its end stretch, especially its true ending, it fell a bit flat. It's the same case here. This time around, we do know the stakes and the players right away in Tormented Souls 2. We need to find Anna and deal with Mother Lucia as the villain. We will learn about the mysteries behind Mother Lucia and the town as we explore. Now, learning about Villa Hesse through all the notes and its history, this was great stuff. There's some dark tales to unfold and learn about. What Mother Lucia was doing to this town and its people. The rituals, the sacrifices. Some elements get into Lovecraftian territory. It's quite an interesting mix here. You have the Catholicism elements of the convent and the town itself, although some of it gets a bit goofy when it pulls elements from Resident Evil tropes. There's a few characters Caroline will come across in her travels. Some have several minutes of dialogue in a cutscene. For the most part, they didn't do much for me. They could meander around without much urgency and lack tension. While Caroline does have more character this time around, it's still lacking in a bit one note. Mother Lucia shows promise as the antagonist at first, but doesn't evolve much beyond that point. Then you add in elements of time travel shenanigans, which do pop up, and things get a bit muddy. You always open up the floodgates to plot holes or contrivances when it comes to dealing with time. As mentioned earlier, the first game did have a couple of clever uses of time, but that's not found here. On the ending itself, or at least how to get the best ending, I will be vague here. It's an annoyance to say the least. The first game, one of its highlights. On the way out, if you think things through, you could save Anna and bring her to the present. For the sequel and getting its best ending, you have to make a long trip between a couple of locations. Despite the excellent level design, this can be a bit of a slog to go back and forth between the locations. There's a bit of bizarre point-and-click logic behind it. I don't believe in a lot of things, but I do believe in duct tape. And I do also believe if you dig what I cover on the channel, it's a no-brainer for you to check out Tormented Souls 2, especially this time of year as of writing. I look forward to seeing what Dual Effect puts out next. It does feel like the good ending wraps up the story in a way to end the series. I hope for their future works they experiment a bit more with other elements, for their foundations on survival horror are rock solid. I'd love for them to take a crack at using a limited inventory. They've done such a great job with level design and progression, I'm sure they nail it. Something, if done right, can take a survival horror title to the next level. With their strengths and puzzles, I'd love to see them integrate that knowledge with other mechanics. Greater usage of time travel or the other side sections. While they can build an interesting world and lore with it, the plot and characters can use some work. But those are minor gripes in the grand scheme of things. Whatever they put out next, I'll await with great interest. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, leave a comment, especially if you figure out the logic to that rotary phone puzzle when you play it. I'm sure when someone points it out, I will finally get it. Special shout out to the Boulder Punchers who give extra support to the channel. For those in complete global saturation tier, American Boot, Flan Nagel. For those in the thank you for your patronage tier, Tom Terrible. For those in the now this is Boulder punching tier, Ethan, the Madman in Waco, James Warner, Cray, Korean characters that Vegas Pro won't show but translates to Natu, the original Narcy's Diet Thick Do TM Neo Edition, those in the Jill Sandwich tier, Angel, Benji, Benny Winterdawn, BBF in Bloxburg, Dark Rod 99, Extraordinary 2, James Kilgore, Leonard Aronson, Logan Lepin, Mad Morpheus Gaming, Michael Walters, Nico Pero, Sam Jones, Squid Vicious, Will Han, and Zin. If you'd like to join or make a one-time donation through Ko-fi, check the pinned comment or description for links. Thanks again, and I'll see you around.